Mercedes Fernando, a.k.a. Mercedes Moné, f.k.a. Sasha Banks, finally opening up on what happened on that cool May evening back in 2022. The final straw that broke the camel's back, the final nail in the coffin, what forced Sasha Banks to be removed from WWE, Mercedes to remove herself from the company. And it may not be exactly what we thought it was, right? Which was people power, John Laurinaitis. Because the old story goes, they slammed their tag titles, her and Naomi Trinity Fatu. They slammed their tag titles on the desk of John Laurinaitis and said, deuces, oozes. But it wasn't exactly John Laurinaitis that really got to Mercedes. It was another individual. We probably should have assumed that from the beginning. When in doubt, blame this dude, right? We'll be talking about that coming up in this amped up podcast for Friday. What is it? I've been on a long flight. I think it's the 26th of September. Either way, you guys are getting an amped up podcast. And one of the big focal points will be Mercedes. She left a quote. So I'm going to give you guys that quote. And this quote kind of ran through the wrestling community within the last 24 hours like wildfire. Because again, for 2 years, we haven't really gotten any information on what really happened that night. And Mercedes just changed that with this quote. She also talked about a potential return to WWE. Would she ever? She gives a quote on that as well. So I know a lot of you guys have been interested in my take on this. This channel was founded upon superstars, wrestlers like Bray Wyatt and Sasha Banks. So yeah, I feel some type of way with these quotes. We're going to talk about it in this podcast. We're also going to talk a shocking Raw rating. Absolutely stunning. And I understand there was 2 Monday Night Football games, but there could be 20. There's no excuse in the world to come up with this number. So we're going to talk about that. And BC's not really stunned with numbers in pro wrestling or anything usually. Numbers tell us a lot, but numbers usually run in trends, right? And while this it is consistent with the downward spiral trend, it's still shockingly low. So it even caught BC off guard. We'll go over that Raw rating. I also have NXT's rating for you guys. We're also going to talk about the biggest moment from NXT, I feel anyway, from this past Tuesday. We're going to talk the biggest moment from AEW Dynamite from just last night. So that's all coming up in this podcast. Won't keep you here too long because a quick programming note. Later this evening, I hope to anyway, if I can finish the last 2 episodes, because BC's been on a long 8-hour flight. I was able to catch the first 4, so that was pretty good. The Vince McMahon docuseries, 6-part series, long flight, so I was able to catch the first 4. From Junior, I believe, was episode 1 to episode 4, which was Family Business. No, that was 5. I didn't get to Family Business yet. So Attitude, I think, was 4. Point is, I have 2 left. It is such a telling series. It's a lot of the stories we already kind of knew, but with the volume turned up. We're learning a lot more information, a lot more details, a lot more just insight. And for those of you like BC that lived through it all, or most of it anyway, 80s, 90s, and so on, these are the stories that you just get to sink your teeth into a lot more. And hearing it from Vince McMahon, who rarely does these type of sit-downs, really intriguing. We haven't gotten to any of the newer stuff in the legalities. I believe they're going to save that for episode 6. A lot of you guys have probably already seen all of it. But if you're interested on BC's take, I've been taking notes the entire time, actually, on the flight. And even when I got back, some things that I wanted to write down. So we will have an interesting discussion on the Vince McMahon docuseries for those that are wondering BC's take on it. I am viewing it. I'm trying anyway. A lot of business, a lot of flight time. There's a lot going on. But when I have free time, and I hope to do that later this evening. So just subscribe, notify, press all the things below. You guys will be the first to know when that upload goes up. But this could possibly be a double upload day. Because I really want to talk this Vince series from Netflix. And it's very telling. So that's a programming note later this evening. This might not be the only upload. And also, before we get into these discussions, a big shout out to Dave Mille. Recently on the SmackDown review, I believe it was, that super thanks, super chat in the comments below. I appreciate the coffees as always. A lot of people don't know, maybe if you're newer to the channel, new subscribers, but before Stegmeister would drop those banger bombs on the pay-per-view PLE live streams, Dave Mealy was throwing boxes of coffee to the Amplified man and the channel. So, Dave, I always appreciate you, man. Always good to see you up in here and rocking out. I don't believe I was able to give that shout out in the Raw review. I was already on my travels, and that was audio only. I was kind of short on time. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed that Raw review. It looks like it was well received. There was a big title change, obviously, with Braun Breaker. So, I give you guys my initial thoughts and my thoughts afterwards as well. That was pretty, that was a wild call by Hunter Hearst Helmsley. It doesn't look like it's one that's being received well. I didn't think it would be. That's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. Rikishi's probably really happy. But if you guys want my thoughts on that, that's in the Raw review. Again, audio only because of travel, but I was unable to give a big shout-out to Dave for that super thanks, super chat in Fridays, which I believe was Saturday morning's SmackDown review. But I did catch that. I appreciate the coffees, man. You know, never needed, always appreciated. Dave, not just a subscriber, but I'm talking about a longtime channel member. So, peak of respect over to Dave. All right, guys, should we get into it? Let me save Now, let's get right into the Mercedes talk. What do you say? Start with Mercedes Moné. She left this. This was an interview. I believe Breakfast Club. Is that what the podcast is called? I don't know, man. But she was doing this podcast interview. And she was asked about that cool night back in May 2022 when she walked out with partner at the time, good friend Trinity Fatu, known as Naomi, of course, to WWE's audience. And by the way, BC broke things when I got back from my travels, so that's why I'm holding the mic. It's not like a new stylistic thing, a new thing we're trying. I broke BC Smash, so I have to, I smashed some of my setup. By accident. No, I was not pissed. I didn't get the wrong coffee order, right? Coffee was good this morning. But that's why we're holding the mic. But so she's doing this Mercedes Fernando. Again, that's a.k.a. Mercedes Moné to AEW's audience, or Sasha Banks for those that just watch WWE. Mercedes Fernando gave this interview. And she was asked about, her and Trinity walking out of WWE. And she gave, for the first time, between any of them, between Trinity and Mercedes, she gave a very candid, straightforward answer. And all the spotlight, all that heat wasn't to John Laurinaitis. I'm just trying to get some power back to the people. No, it wasn't. Because for those that don't know, the story goes that before they walked out, they slammed the titles onto John Laurinaitis' desk because they were tag title holders at the time. Slammed the titles, and they said deuces, deuces. They were out of WWE, never came back. Mercedes never came back. Naomi did, but that was kind of obvious. Of course, Jimmy Uso, her significant other, is not going anywhere. So it was only a matter of time before Naomi. And we always did feel like it was more Mercedes, but Naomi is her own woman. She's very smart. She knows how that company's ran. So she made big girl decisions when she walked out. A lot of people say she was just following Mercedes, and they blamed Mercedes for Trinity leaving. But she's a very smart woman, and she saw how the company was ran, and she was not happy either. And if you were in that company for longer than Charlotte Flair, like Naomi, and they only gave you 2 championships to Charlotte's near 14, if not 14. If you add the NXT titles, maybe she's 15, 16. All those titles, and Naomi's been there more years, at least 1 or 2 more years, and she's only has 2 championships. And you're not telling me that Charlotte is more athletic or a better wrestler. You're not going to do that. Naomi's incredible. Microphone, you could easily say Charlie Flair is robotic at times. You could say these things, but at least you would think Naomi's got 6 or 7 titles, right? Singles? No. So, she probably was not happy for the last several years. So you get her and Mercedes, who was not thrilled, and you got the walkout. But that was the big story that we did know, the piece of information. They slammed the titles down, then they walked out. So everybody thought whatever happened, it was John Laurinaitis that did it. But this is what Mercedes says. I'll give you an exact quote. On the end of Sasha Banks in WWE and Mercedes walking out of the company with good friend and tag champion partner at the time, Trinity Fatu Naomi, Mercedes says the following, and I quote, "I left for many different reasons. A lot of personal stuff happened with myself and the chairman at the time." So she is talking specifically about Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Again, I left for many different reasons, but a lot of personal stuff happened with myself and the chairman at the time. And I just didn't like how he talked to me and how I was talked down to. And I was like, it's time to legit listen to your soul and your heart. There was a light that came to me one day, and I just left WWE. My guides told me, and I was guided to being a 2-time champion at AEW. That day, he talked to me a little crazy. It was enough for my source of light to come into my body and be like, you know what? If you stay, that is not okay. This is for the rest of your life. And what are you going to teach your kids? What are you going to teach people? If you are feeling like this from words, after being there for over 10 years, you've got to stand up for yourself. And that's what I did. Now, on the question of if we will ever see Sasha Banks in WWE ever again, Mercedes says the following, and I quote, "After the way that AEW has been treating me, I don't know, but I don't think so. I feel like I have the best relationship with AEW right now, and it's legit. I'm living my dreams, and it's the best place I've ever been mentally and physically. And to be able to have new dreams after being in the industry for over 14 years, it's the best feeling in the world. So AEW is my home now." So that's pretty direct, and it does contradict what Bayley said recently. Bayley said she'll be back in WWE one day. And I do feel that way. I think that you never know. It seems like they always come back, right? Whether it's Bruno Sammartino, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan a dozen times, Bret Hart even. I mean, if Bret Hart, everything that happened with he and Vince, and we'll go over that too when I give my thoughts on the Vince McMahon docuseries, but even Bret came back, CM Punk, you guys have no idea. For the years that I've been creating content for this channel, I've told you guys ad nauseum, you'll see CM Punk in a WWE ring one day. You will. He's coming back. So is AJ Lee. And there was a lot of fans that are just like, BC, give it up. You're never going to see the dude back in WWE. He was given papers on his wedding day, BC. You really think he's coming back? I said, no, I don't think so. I know he is. They always come back. The only way they wouldn't is if, Tony Khan's promotion really blows up and they become just a staple of that promotion, and they literally just can't go over to WWE, not even to get a Hall of Fame nod, not even to be entered in the Hall of Fame, unless Tony Khan and Vince Endeavor, Ari Emanuel, unless they cut a deal. But I always say they always come back. I always do feel that you'll see Sasha Banks inside of a WWE ring again, and Bayley feels that way as well. But right now, Mercedes has no plans on that. Again, she says, after the way I'm being treated by AEW, I don't know, but I don't think so. So she's being honest. Like, I want to give you a never say never answer, right? So I'll give you, I don't know. But I can tell you, I just don't think so. Because this is the best feeling in the world, she says. AEW is my home now. So again, when you're getting paid a lot of money and you don't have to work the dates that you once worked, and you're being treated better, and you have these championships, right? You have gold finally, and already half the titles that Vince gave her in the year she was there. And she's only been in AEW for months. Just for months. She was in WWE for years. I forgot her title count, but it's nowhere near Charlie's, right? Charlotte Flair's. I think maybe Sasha has maybe 6. 3 of those were within 82 days of one another. It was just to play hot potato to patent the stats of Charlie Flair to get closer to her father 16 times. So Sasha was just a pawn in that game. So that's what I mean. If you take those 3 82-day, those irrelevant reigns, what is she left with? 2 or 3 title reigns, right? Singly? So now here she is, and she's got 2 titles already, and she's getting this respect, and people are, fans definitely turned on her because they do feel like she has this ego and she does feel she's better than everybody. How much of that is character? How much is that, her just turning it up even more, the volume? I'm guessing there's a lot of Mercedes in there, but a lot of people with those big egos, it comes from a lack of self-esteem. You got to remember, right? So they're playing a character for themselves, really, right? It's along the same lines as perception is reality. What you're seeing and what you're hearing may not be the truth, but it's the truth they want you to believe. So Mercedes has this big ego and she's over cocky and confident. But a lot of that, and trust me, this channel was built on two individuals specifically, Bray Wyatt and Sasha Banks, Mercedes Fernando. And that's just because they captivated me more than anybody else. So when I review Bray Wyatt or I review a Sasha Banks, I'm doing it with a more keener and vivid eye because I respect them so much and I put them in such high regards. I put them up on a pedestal. So my reviews and my critiques of them are even more meaningful. And everything that I see through Mercedes, there's a lot of vulnerability there. There's a lot of self-esteem issues. There's a lot of confidence issues. And she kind of masks that by being overconfident, over cocky. That rubs fans the wrong way. And you mix that with some questionable booking in AEW, and a lot of people don't feel it's clicking right now. So it's understandable. But at least they do respect her. The booking might not be top notch, but they did throw the gold deservingly. Because I always said on day one, no matter what promotion Mercedes shows up on or in, Mercedes could have all the gold realistically. So interesting, though, these comments. So that's on if you'll ever see her in WWE again. No, she says AEW is my home. So it does contrast what her best friend Bailey was saying recently. You'll see her. You'll see her. She's just doing this for now, which could be true. And maybe it started out as that, right? She's just AEW for a year or two, let WWE know what they're missing. Come back with my value even higher like a Cody Rhodes did, right? Bet on myself. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Like Zack Ryder is still trying to get right. Matt Cardona, he says Zack Ryder's dead. It's Matt Cardona now, but he became the what's his title? A king of IWC or IWC? The Independents. What is he? The king of? I forgot what tagline he gave himself, or fans have given him. But he's traveled all around the Indies trying to make WWE see like look what I've become, but. Doesn't look like WWE cares, Chelsea, his significant other is right there, Chelsea Green, and she's been advocating for his return. Cardona has been hinting nonstop he's been coming right out and saying he wants to return. Hunter Hearst Helmsley is just like, okay, I don't know what I can do with you. So sometimes you bet on yourself like Cody and it works. Sometimes like Cardona, unfortunately, if you want to get back to if that's the main goal, get back to WWE, finish what you started. Like Cody, it was clearly that. For Cardona, it's clearly that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe it started out that way for Mercedes. And maybe AEW was just like, whoa, this is really good, right? That's what Christian told Edge. Edge didn't just go there on a whim, right? Christian was the middleman in this. Christian was the third wheel, but the most important spoke on that wheel. He was the business model. He was that middle person between Tony and Adam Copeland. And Edge was hearing all this talk. I can get how much money? For how many dates? They'll give me what creative control? And Edge was like, all right, I'm in, dude. So, Mercedes could have gotten there and goes, all right, this could be. That's what Jericho did. Jericho showed up and he's like, I am pretty much second in line here. It's him, Jericho, Danielson. That's like your top tier. I mean, even more than Young Bucks and Omega. I would say Jericho and Danielson have that type of pull in All Elite Wrestling. So we'll see, man. But what I want to talk about, that's just the return talk of WWE. If she'll stay with AEW, I want to go back to her talking about Vince. A lot of people thought the biggest culprit was John Laurinaitis. There was some type of blow up. They threw the titles on Laurinaitis' desk and said, I'm out, we're out. But she says, again, a quote, I left for many different reasons. So it was a culmination of things which we did believe. This wasn't on a whim, right? They just woke up and said, I've had enough, we're out of here. It was building, right? Like a snowball coming down that big hill. And it starts as a snowball. By the time it hits the end, it's like a little bit of a boulder. You can start a snowman, or at least the foundation of a snowman. This has been building. And finally, she was like, that's it. The final straw that broke the camel's back was not John Laurinaitis. It was Vincent Kennedy McMahon. She says, I left for many different reasons, but a lot of personal stuff happened with myself and the chairman. And she literally says, I didn't like how he talked to me and how I was talked down to. He talked to me a little crazy on that day. That's wild, right? He talked down to her. He talked a little crazy to her. Sounded like Vince was not having it. Mercedes was just trying to get a little bit more, or something changed. She didn't feel like something was right. And Vince was like, do as I say, like he always, that's Vince. And Mercedes was like, I've had it, dude. I've given you so much. I'm so damn good at what I do. I just am. You just see Charlie flare in your eyes. That's it. You just want her to get that 16 titles, and you're not interested in us building your tag team division, because that's what her and Bayley was supposed to do when they got the titles, right? We have nothing for you singly. You're not going to get the championships. That's going to be hogged up by Charlie, and it looks like we're going to give a rub or a nice push to Becky Lynch. But we'll give you guys the meaningless tag titles. Maybe you can do something. And they took it, hoping that Vince would actually give them the keys to the kingdom of the tag division. Instead, he absolutely lit those bitches on fire. The keys, not Bayley and Sasha. Lit the keys on fire and then chucked them in the dumpster and watched the whole thing ablaze. He was never interested in building a tag division, ever. So when Sasha was fed the same, Mercedes was fed the same line of BS. All right, this time we're going to build a division. We're going to let you guys be the nucleus to it, the foundation. This time it won't be with Bayley. It'll be with Trinity, Naomi. This time, Mercedes took the bait again and said, all right, but I hope you learned the first time. Let us do this. We can build a real division. Threw the titles on Sasha and Naomi, and it was the same thing. Vince never cared afterwards. It was just to shut them up, stuff them in a corner. You guys can't complain about booking. We threw titles on you. What good are titles in a non-existent division? They're absolutely useless. It's just more weight to lug around at the airport. And so finally she was like, dude, we have to change. If you want a division, we're offering this. And Vince is like, nah, don't get out of my office or you're fired. You don't have to fire me. We're out. So she felt she was talked down to. There was a lot of personal stuff between them going on. It didn't look like that relationship was too tight. And that was it. If you don't have the respect of your boss, that's pretty much it. You got to walk. You know, it can only be about the paycheck for so long. If where you are employed or where you're contracted to, if they don't respect your services and your work and your everything you're giving to them, that's got to be horrible to show up and know that your boss is not giving you the utmost respect or not giving you back the same energy and courtesy that you're giving. And that was it. She said, I'm out. And you know what? Naomi said, no, you ain't going alone. You know how I've been feeling, said Naomi. Wild, man. That was the first time in 2 years that either one of them, Mercedes or Trinity, have opened up to this level and gave us real insight, you know? Because all of us were thinking, like, did anything happen with Vince and Mercedes? Like, no matter what happened, if it was John Laurinaitis or not, couldn't Vince have stopped it or brought her back or solved this? Well, now we know why it didn't get solved, or no. The answer is no to all of that. It's because Vince was the main problem. Interesting. That's my take on it, guys. I mean, that's her exact quote. And I know I'm kind of all over the place on that with a lot of questions. So this does lead to even more questions, but it does give us a lot of insight and it gives us a lot of answers that just boggled a lot of fans, right? Like, how do you lose somebody like Sasha Banks? How is it so bad that she walks out? That would have to be something with like the boss himself, the chairman. It was. If any more details come out on that, we'll talk about it for sure. Or if Mercedes or Trinity feel like speaking more about it, man, it's always an interesting discussion. We're going to go to the Monday Night Raw rating, man. This one shocked BC. Big time. So there was a double football game and I've just been doing so much traveling. I wasn't able to catch any of these games, by the way. But from what I'm being told, there was a double Monday Night Football Monday. Did not matter because the Monday night, but for both games, the numbers were not astronomical or beyond the ordinary. So I just want to deliver that info first for those that are quick to just use that as an excuse. Neither game pulled any out of the normal type numbering. Yet Monday Night Raw fell to a 1.339. They were 39,000 viewers away from being in the 1.2s. 1.2s. And there was also a huge drop in the 18 to 49 demo as well. But I want to compare that to just last year. Last year, 1.465 for this same week of Monday Night Raw. 1.465. 0.41 in the demo, by the way. So even the demo was higher. But that's what I mean about just confusing booking in the face versus faces and the heels versus heels. This going on that doesn't make sense. That's confusing. When your audience is confused, they're just going to walk away. I tell you guys that all the time. It's clear that that's what's happening, right? Even if you don't like BC's words, I understand, right? Not everything I say is going to be what people want to hear, but it's just facts. I say it all the time. Sit back, max, relax, listen to BC drop the facts. That's not just a cute little tagline or some slogan. It's literally what I'm doing because the numbers are telling us these facts, right? Numbers make up facts. 1.339. 1.339. And unfortunately, that was the big question, right? Jay just beat Braun Breaker on a Monday Night Raw. The rating better show that this was worth it. And sadly, and you can't blame Jay and Braun for that, by the way. It's the show in totality. Each hour never went above 1.3 from what I saw. Each hour was like in the 1.3s, which kept it steady at a 1.3. So at least it remained consistent at 1.3. But they never even sniffed a 1.4. So you can't blame Jay and Braun. It's just unfortunate that they were the culprits. They were the main event and they couldn't pull. Nobody wanted to see Braun and Jay or sit around to see Braun and Jay. So you wasted something you could have built for a PLE if you're going to take the title off of Braun and have this big moment for Jey Uso. You did it for a 1.3 audience. If you're new to the channel, you don't really know numbers, talk about numbers. You don't even like to talk about numbers, but you're listening to the podcast, right? Talk some pro wrestling with BC in the unit. I will tell you, 1.3 is beyond bad. Beyond bad. This is the Hunter Hearst Helmsley era, as Michael Cole has told us to nauseum. We're told that he's cooking and all these amazing things are happening, but everyone's turning a blind eye to all the things that need work, that all the things that are not working, the heel versus heel matches, the face versus face matches, faces and heels shaking each other's hands. You know, I left some really good notes, episode 2 or 3, I forgot what it was, for the Vince McMahon docuseries on Netflix, and we're gonna have a discussion on that. How Vince went out of his way. Vince went out of his way. You're gonna hear about some of the notes I took to make sure that the goal that he wanted, the match that he wanted, made sense, and that it was heel versus face. Right, the best way to put it, because there's a lot of fans that don't believe that heel versus heel or face versus face, it doesn't make a difference. That's not what's causing a decline in viewership, but it absolutely is, even if it's subconscious. Putting a heel versus a heel is only going to do one thing. It's going to damage one of your heels, because one of them has to out-heel the other heel. The other heel is going to come out looking like a bum or a lot less heelish. So you lose stock. Same thing with a face versus a face. First of all, you're going to split your audience, right? You're splitting your audience no matter what. We know that. Once you split your audience, the other face is still going to outface the other one, and the other face will lose value and lose stock, lose prestige. We've seen it time and time over the years, over the decades. Nothing's changed in 2024 in that aspect. The only difference is we do it more often. So I've been using this example for a couple of months now, since it happened a couple months ago. Damage Control. They're heels. They just beat the faces, Valkyria's team. Another heel group jumps in the ring, Sonya's team, takes out the heels Damage Control, and then the next week, we supposedly have a face Damage Control now. They quietly turned faces because they were out-heeled the week before. Nothing came from it. Sonya's group still gets crickets. Damage Control, unfortunately, as much as we love Kari, and Io is one of the best wrestlers for the females on the planet. How much respect we have for Asuka. Not that she's with them right now. She's still on hiatus on injury. But Io and Kari, how can they... Every match they have, there's just nothing but silence from the crowd. It's because look at their booking. How do you think that's good booking? Just having a heel group out-heel them, and then they're quietly faces, so you're telling everybody, after everything you did to Bayley, after everything you did to all the faces on the roster, you didn't mount up to nothing. You accumulated all of that to nothing, to the point where now you're faces yourself. And they gave them no good booking as faces. In fact, now they're in this little mini feud with the top faces, Bianca and Jade. Faces versus faces. They became faces because they were heels getting out-heeled by heels. I hope that makes sense. This is the booking, man. Nobody wants to talk about it. They want to talk about the good stuff, right? Oh, but Punk and Drew. Okay, you're going to have feuds that are better than others and that are going good. But in those same feuds, you're going to have really poor weeks, like CM Punk just saying words a couple of weeks ago and no Drew McIntyre. We've been seeing this feud for months. Now's not the time just to have a simplistic promo in the middle of the ring. We've already seen that in the first month. You got to build now. We've already seen last man still, or what did we see? Strap matches and no holds barred. Now we're going to see Hell in a Cell. And here we are months later, and we're just having CM Punk on his own cutting a promo. 2 weeks later, which is last Monday, Drew McIntyre cutting a simplistic promo by himself. No CM Punk. Odd booking, man. Questionable. And that's in some of the top storylines. The bloodline has absolutely been imploded. Easily, Vince McMahon's bloodline storytelling was way better with Sami Zayn and how electrifying it was. That's when SmackDown was pulling a 2.6 because of that bloodline storytelling. A lot of that you could say was Paul Heyman too, by the way. But under Hunter Hearst Helmsley, this bootleg bloodline, it's an absolute fail. An absolute fail. And that's why SmackDown, even when they were on Fox those last 2 weeks, were mingling, barely holding on to 2 million viewers. And when they finally went to USA, they dropped all the way to a 1.7 already. That was a debut show. Now, I could keep going as to why we saw a 1.339 rating this week on Raw, but I know the simplest thing to do, the easiest route to go, is to just blame football, right? As long as football is on, they can't compete, BC. So they'll be happy with any number. Wait till football's done, BC. Then you're going to see the best of what Hunter can do. He's going to start cooking, and Raw's going to be amazing, and the numbers are going to be through the roof. Well, that's false, because just a few weeks ago, Monday Night Football was not on, and they were pulling 1.6s and 1.5s. So don't even 1.7 if they're lucky, right? Once in a blue moon, they'll hit that elusive 1.8. But for the most part, 1.6, 1.7 is a bona fide average. And they bottomed out at a 1.5 before Monday Night Football even came back this season. So if you're telling me that Monday Night Football is taking 100 to 200,000 viewers, all right. What about the other 5 to 750,000 viewers that you should be getting bare minimum? Because that's where they should be. Bare minimum, bottom tier is over 2 million. They haven't sniffed that in the longest of times. If you're wondering, 1.339 is one of their lowest ratings of all time in show history. I think only one other actual live show is with them in that regard. And then there was 2 best of shows, like those holiday type shows. Those are the only other ones. That's how low this is. It was 39,000 viewers away from a 1.2. I told you this would happen years ago, just a couple of years ago. I said at this rate, if things don't really change, consistency at the highest of peaks, you're going to start to see a 1.112 rating. People laughed, people scoffed. BC, it won't go that low. Not only did it, but it did it in record time. We're already talking about 1.2s. Now, once it goes to Netflix, people are going to say ratings don't matter anymore anyway because it'll be on Netflix. Well, then you're going to have hours streamed. They're going to want bang for their buck, a return on their investment. They spent billions of dollars. Netflix now wants viewers to stay locked on the majority of those 3 hours. So if their watch time is not logging in to where it should be, if they don't keep their audience for the majority of that 3 hours on average every single Monday night, WWE is going to be hearing from Netflix. So if anything, numbers are going to matter even more when they make the move to Netflix, not in a form of ratings, but now logged watch time. Speaking of ratings, NXT pulled 620. I believe they were 670 some odd last week. That's not good to go down 50,000 when you're 1 week away from your big CW move. You're pumping up this big women's match with Giulia and Rok-C, CM Punk special guest referee with Ethan Page and Trick Williams rematch, and you lost 50-something thousand viewers. I don't have AEW's number as of yet. 2 big moments from each show. NXT. Biggest moment for BC anyway was Giulia and Rok-C, Roxanne Perez, kind of having this Q&A. They were both at a separate table. Giulia had a translator in Funaki. That was interesting. Segment was rather flat. Crowd was quiet. They did, again, Giulia just spoke in her language and sent it over to Funaki to try to translate. That kind of... that was a little rougher. And on one hand, I'm glad they let her just flow like that. I thought it was funny and cool to have Funaki do that, but there wasn't a flow to it. And the random questions actually got kind of weird, got kind of odd. But why I say this was the most significant part of the show was because at the end, when they stood face to face talking about who's going to win that title for the big move on the CW next week, it was Stephanie Vaquer that showed up on the big Tron. And Stephanie says, no matter who walks away with that title, you'll still have to deal with me. Stephanie Vaquer finally speaking out. Since she's been signed, we've been waiting for that moment, right? And they put all 3 of them together in the same segment. You had Rok-C, you had Giulia, you had Stephanie Vaquer. How badass was that? So that was pretty cool. I was glad I was able to actually catch that. I caught that live. It was like the only 10 minutes I could catch on the show. Found out most of what happened, and I was like, no, to me, that's the highlight. Just like on AEW, MVP debuted with All Elite Wrestling this past Wednesday night. This is the first domino to fall, and you know how one domino falls, they all kind of follow in suit, follow in line. This was the first domino, MVP. You got to start thinking Bobby Lashley, maybe Shelton Benjamin. We know that MVP has already trademarked Hurt Syndicate. So they can't be Hurt Business because WWE has that trademark, but Hurt Syndicate. So he's not filing those trademarks just for himself. And it was cool because, you know, he's trying to get to Nana or through Nana to get to Swerve Strickland. And he wants to do business with Swerve Strickland. And for BC, man, some people are not liking this. Others are like, all right, I'm willing to see where it goes. I'm already a mile ahead. I think this would be amazing. If Swerve joined forces with Bobby Lashley, Shelton, and MVP, a super faction, right? Hurt Syndicate. And you really establish a relationship on television with MVP and Swerve. And you already know that MVP has that with Bob Lashley. So when the time is right, way in the future, that Swerve Bobby Lashley feud, goosebumps. And MVP's in the middle. Which way do I go? It's almost like a Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns situation, right? Which way do I go? Which way do I go? I don't know. Fans don't know. MVP is tight with Bobby. There's no way he double cross him. But you establish this relationship with Swerve, almost like it's the new Brock for Paul Heyman, right? It's Roman Reigns, and there's no way Paul's going to betray Roman, but it's Brock. You could do something like that. It would be so awesome. And just thinking of Swerve, you know, Nana's all right, but man, him with MVP, him and Bobby Lashley destroying people, and then what it leads to when they finally collide. The story that you could tell. This was a massive pickup by AEW. Now you're going to start to hear, oh, it's not going to move the needle. It's not going to do anything for the metrics, BC, the numbers like you always talk about. That may be so, right? Because history is already showing us that. Mercedes Moné, Edge, Okada, Will Ospreay. Nobody that shows up seems to be able to move the needle. But even WWE's ratings are going backwards. So it's not like it's just an AEW thing. Pro wrestling is just not... We're being sold. I say this all the time. We're being sold that we're in a boom period in wrestling, but we're just not, guys. We're just not. They're liquidating, right? They're inflating prices. People are paying for it. They're taking away live events, so you have to go to just Raws and SmackDowns, which inflates the numbers, makes them sellouts. That's because live events are down. What's going to be over 50% by the end of or 60 some odd percent by the end of next year. So there's all these little games going on, right? They're going to so many other countries now outside the US. So now the inflated revenue is pouring in. Business is booming, but it's WWE's business. But it's not in terms of engagement, in terms of excitement and fans being captivated, or new fans, casual new fans coming to the product and casual fans coming back to the product, lapsed fans. We're not seeing that. So it's not just an AEW thing, man. They're getting a lot of big talent and they're just not moving the needle. It's no fault of their own. It's not that they don't have star power or they can't contribute. Just so much needs to be changed around. It's an industry thing. Right, I'll put it this way. Hunter Hearst Helmsley or Tony Khan, one of them, they have to come up with an idea that changes the industry. NWO-esque. It has to be. That was the thing that really put the business to a whole nother level, forced WWE to start doing what they were doing. We're going to have a moment, a situation that occurs, and the consistency that follows it, because the NWO for a year afterwards, after that Hogan turn on Macho Man, Bash at the Beach Bash, whatever it was, after that turn, they had every week you had to watch for over a year, the engagement. 83 weeks they were kicking WWE's ass in the ratings. Until that happens, I don't know if anybody's going to come over and really move the needle anymore. But I can tell you that MVP adds a wealth of possibilities to that show, storyline-wise. They don't need more wrestlers to do the flips and the dives and have good wrestling matches so Meltzy can give them 8 stars. No, you need people like MVP to develop and bring along those storylines. So I'm down with that. Can you tell BC's excited about it? So hopefully hopefully we get to see that value going forward. Guys, that's what I got for you, man. Again, lots of travel, a little bit jet lag. Got to get another coffee, but a lot of good discussion, man. Good to be back and amped up for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. If you did, or didn't, either way, later this evening, hopefully, there'll be another, we'll call it an Amplified Plus, another upload. We'll be talking the Vince McMahon docuseries from Netflix. I already have a lot of notes on it. It is so interesting. I got a couple episodes left, and we're going to talk about it. A lot to break down, a lot to discuss, a lot of insight from this Netflix series. Until next time, there will be that next time. Top guys, we're out. BC in the unit, saying check.